Hi, my name is Steve Otteson. I live in Redmond, Washington, and I'm going to tell you a story about the restoration of Nauvoo. In the late 1970s, the RLDS Church was busy in Nauvoo with some building projects, and these were intended for both RLDS and non-RLDS visitors. Besides building a visitor center, the church was reconstructing Joseph Smith's red brick store because there were some very important events that took place in church history there. About 15 families in the church had donated up to $30,000 each as a sesquicentennial gift to the church so that they could build the red brick store. Now, the reorganization in their building project in Nauvoo, they focused on historical accuracy. And in this case, they even looked up in Joseph Smith's records so they could sell some of the same items in the store. Now, besides in the plan acknowledging that the Relief Society had been founded there in the red brick store, the planners really wanted to highlight the fact that Joseph Smith Jr. and Hiram Smith blessed Joseph Smith III to be the successor as president of the church. The plan was to make the red brick store a place where the RLDS church could communicate to the world that Joseph Smith III was the rightful successor to Joseph Smith Jr. RLDS church presidents W. Wallace Smith and Wallace B. Smith saw the restoration of the red brick store as an opportunity for proselytizing their faith. Some in the RLDS church even thought that focusing on this setting apart of Joseph Smith III in the red brick store would lead to Mormons to convert to the RLDS church. Now, there were people in the church who didn't agree with the strategy, and they argued strongly against it. One especially strong voice was that of Richard Howard, church historian. He explained that focusing on the setting apart of Joseph Smith III would renew bickering between the two faiths. Howard called for a discussion of what the priority should be at the RLDS historic sites, and he said focusing on that one event, that setting apart, would detract from being able to present a bigger picture of Joseph Smith's life in Nauvoo beyond just the religious doings, like his work and his interests. Focusing on the blessing would, to quote Howard, perhaps unwisely raise a contentious issue with Mormon visitors, the issue of prophetic succession that both churches have long ago settled. Howard hoped that he could give RLDS visitors a fresh, authentic view of Nauvoo that freed them from their previous disappointments, how things had gone so badly in Nauvoo and how they felt the church had not lived up to their earlier ideals. Howard asked church leadership, quote, "Do we really want to revive and continue our historic warfare along the Mormon boundary in the face of bold, imaginative servanthood ministries to which the Lord has called the church in recent years?" In the end, Howard and others who thought like him won out. The church decided to stick with historical accuracy while also looking forward to the future of their faith, instead of trying to preach to visitors. Because Howard helped diffuse the theological tensions in Nauvoo, the two churches were eventually able to cooperate between their Nauvoo historic sites. Bill Russell, a scholar with Community of Christ, once put it, the relationship between the two churches emerged as one of, quote, clear differences, closer friends, end quote, as both churches worked to restore Nauvoo in their own way. When I read this in Scott Esplin's book, Return of the City of Joseph, I found myself rooting on Dick Howard. I was grateful that he stood up and understood. He could see the changing tides in the RLDS church and how the Mormon boundary was not really something they wanted to gauge anymore, that their path was towards Jesus Christ, and that was something they were focusing on. I'm glad he decided that battle was not something the church needed to fight anymore.